Well, starting climbing at 6 years old is pretty remarkable in itself because many parents, don't even want their kids to like walk down the street without a helmet on, much less go rock climbing. So, how did your passion for the sport even begin?
Yeah, that's a great point because it's definitely something that my mom navigated while raising her 6-year-old who she thought was going to be like a figure skater, ballet. Both of sports are which I've dabbled in and done, but my brother had a birthday party at a climbing gym when I was 6 years old. It was 1998. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. This is at this climbing gym called Sport Rock in Alexandria, Virginia. And my brother, being 14 months older than me, we were really competitive, or at least I was the younger sister who was always competing with her older brother. And it was this like birthday party with all of his friends from school and his hockey team. And I had always really loved climbing things like at the ice rink after my figure skating practice, when my brother would be at his hockey practice. I'd kill my time by like climbing the rafters around the skating rink. And the joke kind of became it's my mom and the other parents, like, where's Sasha? Oh, just look up. And so climbing was just like this hobby that I went and experienced for the first time. And then I really loved it. And the climbing gym employee was like, oh, well, your daughter has natural talent for this. You should bring her back for like junior team practice. And I don't know if they like say that to every kid that goes to the birthday parties, but for me, I felt special in that moment. And I just like begged and prodded my parents to let me go back. And that was kind of the early days. I walked into a competition when I was 7, just literally stumbled upon a local regional youth event. And that's how I found out that there was even a competitive side to rock climbing. Since this was the late 90s, early 2000s, climbing wasn't a very established sport. And it's still, living in Boulder, Colorado, you think it's a mainstream sport, but then you step outside of that little echo chamber and you're like, oh yeah, it's still decently niche.
And to your point, it's gained some momentum, and there have been some pretty famous shows, movies, different things about kind of the extremes of rock climbing and some of the risks that people have taken in rock climbing. And to the average person, they don't know the difference between the people that are doing it without ropes, right? And the people that do it with ropes, and the people that there's just a lot of different ways, like any sport, a lot of different ways to do it. So educate us, those of us who are like, she does what? Talk about your sport and what part of it that you are passionate about and have been so decorated because of what you've been able to do.
Sure, that's a great diving in point. In climbing, first of all, there's a competition scene and then there's an outdoor scene. And what I started in was the indoor scene, which was the competition scene. So at 7 years old, I was competing on artificial surfaces that are basically crafted in different warehouses. Now there's kind of major climbing centers around the world in basically every city. So that side of the industry has grown a lot, and it's been a vehicle for alternative forms of fitness that are just engaging and social. And I think that that's been a really big vehicle in the growth of the sport. So in competition, I would be competing on courses that were set by people called route setters. And what the route setters do is create a course on a climbing wall that has never been tried before. It's completely unique course that's set up for each unique competition. And within competition climbing, there's lead climbing, bouldering, and speed. And that breaks down to basically around 50 to 60 foot walls for lead climbing. Bouldering is shorter walls, so up to 15 feet, where you fall climbing without a rope, but you fall onto what's like a gymnastics pad. And then speed climbing, like lead, you have a rope, but you're racing up the same course that everyone has already done a million times in practice on. It's on homodulated holds. So it's the same across every single competition around the world. It's a 15-meter, so 49-foot course that basically seeing people do in sub 10 seconds. And Sorry, I'll let
No,
you
go
go.
ahead. No, so when I think about a course, right, you think about, people that have seen these, fake rock walls, right? There's the different holds where you put your hand. Again, I'm trying to break it down to like real, like elementary school level. So basically, in part of the sport, the goal is just to get to the top as fast as you can. And you know what you're doing because you've done it a million times before. The other part of it is you walk into a place and they say, here's the path you have to take. Let's see who can do that the best. Is that the really generic way to say it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because when I was writing my book, I really did want it to be appealing to people who have no idea what rock climbing is and really make it so that it's approachable for everyone. So I appreciate the questions here. Within the lead climbing division, which was my specialty, and also what I've transferred to my outdoor realm, which I'll get into after, but that is contrary to what people may think about climbing being like an adrenaline junkie, dangerous sport. You have a rope and you're wearing a harness and you do fall, but when you fall, it's simply like landing in a comfortable harness position while yes, at a height, but the consequences are quite minimal. Outdoor climbing, what I do is called free climbing. So not to be confused with free soloing. Maybe some of the you guys listening have seen the movie Free Solo. And that's a huge distinction that I like to make because free soloing, so very few people in the sport actually pursue that avenue because you're climbing without a rope, without gear, without protection. If you fall, it is a very fatal consequence. That's not what I do. It doesn't interest me at all. What I do is free climbing, where you have a harness, you have gear, you have a rope, and falling is actually a major part of progression. So, what I have is these like big cliff faces that I am not only challenging my body physically to try and get to the top of, but also your mind is constantly working towards figuring out the different sequences and how to kind of read the rock and find a pattern that enables the just like very tips of your fingers and your toes to stay engaged and create contact surface strength to actually scale an otherwise seemingly impossible face. And that excites me a lot because it's this physical and mental journey. And it's full of these unknowns of like, I don't know if I'm actually capable of climbing this wall, but I can keep trying and keep failing and getting back up and trying again until I succeed. And there's a lot of kind of perseverance that's included within that aspect of the sport that excites me a lot.
And that's the part of your sport and your background that I think all of us who look at a rock face and go, absolutely not. I don't care how many, harnesses around me, I'm not doing it. But the part that everyone can relate to is that part of the learning and part of the getting better is the falling.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is so applicable to every part of life that you have to push yourself till past what you think you can do to realize you need to like course correct and learn some new things or grow in some way or learn a new skill or train some more to be able to get to the next level. But it's this falling. I mean, you don't even call it a mistake, right? You call it just learning. And how many people make big mistakes in life and they can never get past it because they don't view it as a learning. They don't view it as something that can teach them something that can help them get to the next level. I love that about what you do.
Yeah, it can be scary to fall, both actually scary to take a fall into a rope that's like meters or 15 feet below you because you're lead climbing and you are above your gear, but you know that your gear is solid. So there's kind of this classification of like irrational fear and rational fear that's a constant balance in climbing, especially outdoors. And then there's also just the sheer fact that often you won't improve in life in general if you don't step outside of your comfort zone and if you don't take that fall, because in taking that fall, it enables you this space to learn from what you did wrong and then course correct and course correct and course correct because every little adjustment in high-end rock climbing matters so much. Like it could be a millimeter adjustment of your hip and where it stands in relation to how your body is positioned on the wall, dangling from your fingertips. And if you move your foot like inches to the right, or your body positioning millimeters to the left, that'll make a huge difference of how and if you succeed up that wall. So I think that it's very transferable to business and school and life in general, what I've found at least.